All right, guys, welcome to Josh and Aaron Talk About Stuff. I am Josh.
And as always, I am Aaron.
All right, sorry for the delay in
It was
episodes
hot.
because my buddy Aaron and his family were going through some horrible heat and they made it through. So I'm happy about that. Your house didn't melt down.
House didn't melt. Nobody passed out in the street.
Tires
we made
made
it.
it through.
It was
You didn't have to get new tires on your car or anything.
right now, nothing like that.
Crazy.
Actually, Stacy's windshield cracked. I halfway
Really?
think that's because I kind of halfway think it's I kind of think it might have to do with the heat, but other than that.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you made it through.
Yeah.
But before we get started, I just wanted to take a shout out to my buddy Tom. So I sent him the. Oh, by the way, before I get into all that, if you don't like watching us talk, we are now on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. So in the About
if you
section,
can't take my weird face and facial expressions,
yeah, like a friend of mine wants to listen to us talk, but he was like, with YouTube, you can't watch it on your phone and close it, and then it closes the app, right? So you can't listen to us. So if you want to just listen to us on the podcast, if you click
ramble on about whatever.
Yeah, our links for the if you have Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, their links are in the About section for the YouTube channel. But we're still going to do YouTube because I'd rather see Aaron and talk to him than just do it over the phone. You know what I mean?
It makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, so we'll still have the YouTube videos. But so my buddy Tom, right? So he'll get out of this since he subscribed, which is awesome. Immediately, I get a text that he fact checked me.
Nice.
But it was a semi fact check. So when I went on my rant about peasants throwing food, how I didn't believe it, he was like, "Well, they kind of actually did," but it was like I wasn't entirely wrong either. Like it was probably they threw the most rotten of the rotten food, even though they still ate rotten food. But I was
they could literally not eat anymore because it was just so bad.
Imagine the stomach problems that these people had.
Oh my gosh, right?
But I mean, still, they still threw a lot. They had a lot of rotten food back in the day. Good.
Prilosec would have made a fortune.
Any of those places. But anyway, that was thanks, Tom, for.
Good job, Tom.
At least the meat of the thing, he didn't say I said anything wrong. So it was just the fun stuff. He was like, they actually did throw food, and I was like, anyway, so
fine,
whatever.
There's always going to be a Tom. That's just all there is.
Yeah, he's a really good buddy. I've known him for 22 years, longer than I've known you. And he just did it. He wasn't mean about it or anything like that. It was just, hey, by the way.
I think it's great.
But you know what? I welcome fact checking because, we're not teaching history or we're just talking, man, and we don't know everything and we can't know everything.
I mean, I do. I just try not to act like it.
Sure. All right, so today's topic. Today's the last episode of the season, and there's gonna be a delay between seasons, guys, because I'm gonna upload season 1 and our pilot season up to the podcast. That way. Anyway, so you'll be able to listen to that if you want. But all right, so today we're going to talk about the little amendment that could, the amendment that wants to be number 1, but it's not. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment.
Oh, God, do we have to?
All right, so before we get into the amendment thing, ever since I read autobiography of Malcolm X, he was really big on human rights. So putting the Constitution of America aside and all the other stuff, I think and agree, humans have a right to defend themselves if their life is in danger and to defend their family.
Sure.
I think that is completely a separate issue than the Second Amendment, all right? I think it's completely different with what the founders intended. But so the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, all right? So, it's kind of like, what did the founders really mean by all that, right? So let's break it down. So a militia, how would you describe what a militia is?
It's a citizen army, right?
Right.
That's how I describe it. It's a citizen army, but it's a citizen army that is at the beck and call is probably the wrong word because it makes it sound like.
Well, there was no police force, so there was
no police force. There was no standing military. So the militia was like the citizen army that the government or the states could call on if they needed to defend themselves. I mean, that's all there was to it.
And everyone knows what a militia is. It's almost like one of those things, you know what it is, but you can't explain it. You know that?
Right.
But I know there was one Supreme Court case, I think it was the 2008 case, where one of the justices, who's no longer with us, was trying to talk about, well, a militia is actually, come on, man, we know what a militia is. It's the dude around the corner who's part of the Weekend Warrior Club that if we got to call him up, you know what I mean? Like, certain people just want to really read into stuff. All right, so so a well-regulated militia. What does well-regulated mean?
Well, I mean that it's like that defines itself, right?
Right. It's the people in power making laws and stuff say, hey.
Well-regulated means it's structured, right?
So well-regulated militia, which everybody skips over the first part of that amendment. They never talk about, well, it says it's well-regulated. Oh, well, so this says being necessary for the security of a free state, right? The right of people to keep and bear arms. So keeping the arms would be like what? We get to keep them in our home, or or is it a public trust? It's socialism where we all own it, you know? Right. And then the bear them, meaning use them, right? Because you got to think about what was going on. I mean, the amendment was written well after the revolution, but like the founders had a big fear of the government.
Not that far after the revolution is a thing.
True.
Like
so
they just fought a war.
Yeah. So it was several years in between, but they were like, hey, man, we don't want a government coming in and telling people you can't have guns, because the British were occupiers at the time of the revolution and would not allow people to use the weapons. And so they were like, hey, man, we don't want the government or a government to have citizens that can't defend themselves, because then it's tyranny, which we just fought a war against. Right. So we're going to let the people keep and bear them. But I think the Second Amendment is a completely separate thing than defending yourself in your own home. I think the Second Amendment has to do with protecting ourselves from the government and possibly foreign invaders, because there was no standing. I don't think it has to do with I can carry a gun down the street and if I feel threatened, start shooting. I don't think that's what it's about. It's evolved into that, and I don't necessarily think we have to apply 1780s and 90s judgments and values to today. You know, I'm not saying that it can't evolve into what people assume it to be now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think if you really want to get down to it, and since we got to go with what the founders believed in, I don't think they thought that it should just be everybody carry for, you know.
They weren't looking for the Old West.
Right. And maybe they didn't even need to consider, well, of course somebody should be able to defend their own home. You know, that could have been just one of those givens.
It's like, you know, that's one of those, this is one of those kind of, well, no kidding sort of statements, right? Like, you should be able to have a gun to you know, and you should be able to protect yourself.
Right.
But you should also have it in case we need to call up a militia to defend us from something tyrannical, because the last thing we want is to be stuck under a monarchy again. And so we want our citizens to be able to, because I think so much of what they did with the first 10 amendments was about preventing monarchy from ever happening in this country. That was that was such a fear for them, and obviously, you know, that was kind of their goal. I have no issue with the Second Amendment or with gun ownership.
I just think it's been perverted and exaggerated.
My issue is that no, you beat me to it.
All right.
No, you're fine. no, we're agreeing with it, because I think we've talked about it and agreed on it before. The issue is the way that it's the way it's been perverted, I guess is the word you were using. And it's our understanding of it is just.
Yeah, I don't think people need
you didn't get to own a cannon back in the day.
Well regulated.
The founders weren't like.
Right.
Thou shalt go over to Bob's house. Bob does have a cannon.
Right.
You know, I mean,
and like, I think that you don't need to use the Second Amendment to justify defending yourself in your home, because that's a human right to defend yourself and your family.
Right.
I do think it's a little gray area though, when like if you seek out somebody and start fighting them, and then the tables get turned on you, and then you call, "Oh, I feared for my life," and start shooting. I think that's
you got a problem.
Just get your ass beat and move on. But you don't need to
take your whooping and move on.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sure there's a statistic out there of the amount of people who have been killed being beat to death. I think I don't think it's a lot of people, because generally there might be other people around to stop that. But like, just don't go seeking out and then the tables get turned on you, and then you cry, "Oh, I feared for my life, so now I got to shoot the guy because he's beating my ass."
Right.
That's not no. So, but I also, and I don't think you don't need to use the Second Amendment to justify defending your own home. You use the Second Amendment to justify the government overreach of. But then that's where that whole well-regulated thing comes in. Like, if the government, the Congress, even in the actual Constitution, because the amendments are additions too, it talks about militias, and Congress has the ability to regulate them because there were no police forces. There wasn't really a standing military like we have now.
So if the government has the right to regulate a militia, that kind of says they have a right to regulate how you use your guns too.
Right, and maybe what kind, because obviously the founding fathers couldn't foresee the AR-15, the gun,
absolutely not.
The most talked about gun, ever, or really like even pump action shotguns or pistols that could fire more than one shot in 3 minutes.
Right.
Or a rifle,
They couldn't have foreseen that. It took forever.
Right. And unfortunately, people also need to get kind of live in reality. And I've said this to you before. We passed the point of no return a long time ago where we could even, if the government turned on us, Second Amendment or not, ain't nothing we can do about it, folks.
Yeah, no. I mean, the whole idea that, and I think Biden said that the other day in a press conference. It's like if the government turned on you people, we're well past the point now where you can defend yourself.
You're gonna hide in your basement. Well, there's gonna be no offensive stuff happening if the government turns on. It's gonna be all defensive, and because guess what? They got tanks, helicopters, aircraft carriers, submarines, all kinds of aircraft, nukes, more bullets than you could think of. There's there's nothing that we could do. Plus, all the individual police forces, they're armed with the government too.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? So luckily, I know I talk bad about humanity, and I'm not going to change my mind on it, but a lot of people do have level heads.
Yeah, right.
And we're not going to. We need to stamp out that tyranny and the domestic terrorism crap when we see it, and not let it go on. But yeah, like I think it was like 1999 or whatever. Charlton Heston. He's a big NRA guy.
Oh yeah,
and he had the rifle from my cold dead hand.
Yeah, right.
Like, come on, man. There's nothing Charlton Heston could have done either.
I don't know, man. He was Moses.
And he was also what's another one he played in?
Ben-Hur.
Yeah, he was a lot of guys.
Yeah, right. Moses and Ben-Hur. He's right up in God's ear, man. Charlton Heston's like, hey, God. So.
He was the Omega Man.
Right, exactly.
But so, yeah, I mean, people have the right to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
We also have a right to defend ourselves from the government. But we can't. I always feel like weird when I see somebody out in public with a pistol on their side, on their hip. It's weird to me, and I don't know if that's. I don't know if it's like a me thing or the way I was raised or a society thing, but I didn't see that growing up ever.
It wasn't as common. This whole open carry thing has become a lot more common,
And like
it is disconcerting. I think it's disconcerting for a lot of people. I mean, I think there's a very, very few number of people who aren't mildly taken aback by the fact that when they see someone walk into a grocery store or something and they've got a pistol on their hip. It's a disconcerting thing unless that individual is wearing a uniform.
Yeah, that's what we're used to seeing. Like, of course, I've seen police officers with pistols.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Like a regular citizen, what is all that about? It's weird.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And maybe I didn't maybe I didn't take notice as a kid, but I just don't recall it.
Yep.
So,
but another thing with the well-regulated part, you've got to train to be able to use your firearm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like police officers, we've mentioned before, their accuracy rate is not very high, and they train a lot. It's higher than mine would be, of course, But like, sometimes I don't think people understand. Like, very few people that are non-military personnel really understand what it's like to get into a firefight or pull your pistol.
Right.
Your adrenaline goes up. nerves take over. You're supposed to rely on their training, but like people don't really. And then so bystanders become the victims. You know what I mean? Like so, well regulated means you might need to every 3 months go to a course and prove that you are. It's purely for a defensive thing, like just to protect yourself. But like, if you, I don't know, it's just people want to turn it into.
Well, I think
it's fighting words trying to take my gun from me.
Right. Well, I mean, I think
what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the problem though, and this is the other end of it. I think there is an arm of, certain political groups that would like to just take all the guns away,
right.
And the reality of it is that's not a reality. Right. It's too deeply entrenched as a part of our society, and I'm not saying that is a good thing, a bad thing. I'm not saying that is you said sometimes that what does it you say that I should just make it stand on one side or the other.
Pick a side, Aaron.
Yeah, right. Pick a side. No, this isn't even a pick a side. This is just a statement of fact. Guns are it's too deeply entrenched as a part of our society. People have been, well, I mean, it's written into the Constitution, and so you're not gonna get rid of them. And so the groups out there that are trying to just eradicate the idea of guns in our society needs to give up, because this is not going to happen. Right. But the group on the other side that is so against regulation needs to realize that it's written that way, like you said. It's as well regulated.
Like, background checks. I don't know why anybody would be against that.
I don't understand it.
Like, do you want a person with mental health issues having access to a weapon?
Someone who's committed multiple violent felonies.
And like,
I mean.
I'm not. I don't know if this should happen, but if you're a parent and you have a child with mental health issues, make sure your guns are locked up, or don't have them until they get help, because a lot of these people get the gun from their family and then go shoot up a school, and you're like, but I love the part where they're like, he was so nice, we didn't know. Well, how can you not know, man? Like. Anyway, all right, calm down, Josh. Calm down.
Calm down, Josh. It's gonna be okay.
But sometimes people just get like so. First off, rights are made up, guys. We made them all up. I love that about George Carlin. They're all made up. But in the sense that rights are supposed to be things that can't be taken away, right?
Right.
Like your right to vote shouldn't be taken away, right? Anyway, so you don't have to. I don't even know what I was trying to say. George Carlin messed me up. But their rights are made up. You know what I'm saying? Like, we made them up. But the Second Amendment, I really feel is more geared towards protecting ourselves from the government. And even though we can't really do anything
about
other
governments.
And other governments, but we should still try. I mean, I think if a police force starts burning down a neighborhood because some guy led a coup, then yes, let's fight back. But be reasonable, be sensible. No, I think most people don't want guns to be in the wrong hands.
Right.
And that's the well-regulated part. Like, guns aren't for everybody. No. Meaning they shouldn't be in the hands of everybody just because the Constitution says what it says, right? But we also have to get over the fact that the Founding Fathers were not infallible. That's a big one people want to talk about. The Founding Fathers, they weren't just because they. I don't know.
Just because they wrote the thing doesn't mean they were gods.
Right. They were human too, right? They all had their own ideas based on the time. So I'm just saying, like, just because maybe we need to amend the Second Amendment mildly. I mean, I think one of the justices, who's not a justice anymore, mentioned how the Second Amendment probably should be written out. Where I think it was geared more towards the militia status. Like, and here's another thing, folks. It says a well-regulated militia. What militia are y'all part of that I don't know about?
How do I join up?
If we're, I hate repeating myself, but I don't really because I like talking. But like, if you're a constitutionalist, there need to be militias out there that you're a part of, and that you're regulated and you train regularly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tired of the picking and the choosing.
Overseen by the government,
right?
Well regulated by the government, who comes out and checks on you.
Well, maybe Tom, if you're listening, you'll fact check me. Tell me what I know. It's in Article 1. Congress gets to talk about. Congress gets to decide stuff about militia. So you can tell me later what.
Some 4-star can cruise down the line, and this is the North Carolina militia, and he's gonna be like, "That looks okay. That looks okay," and he does not get to hold a gun anymore.
or fine, you can keep your bear your arms, but turn in your guns for muskets.
Yeah, right. Everybody's got to learn to use a musket.
Three shots in a minute if you're excellent.
If you're really good, like that's super really good.
Oh, I can't even imagine the whole process.
I think you'd be closer. I think 2 shots a minute would be really good. I'm not really sure.
But I got that.
Let Tom check that too.
Where Matthew Broderick's trying to get the guys ready, and he's like a well-trained, blah, blah, blah. I can get 3 shots off in a minute. I mean, or they could have been in the Patriot. I don't know. It's something to do with a musket. It takes a long time to load it. And then it ain't very accurate when you shoot it.
That's for sure. Smooth bore.
All right. From my cold dead hands.
All right, Charlton.
Is it Carlton or Charlton?
It's Charlton.
Whatever it is. He's an all right actor, I guess. Who cares? Anyway, any last thoughts on the little amendment that could?
You know what? No.
I think we said everything we wanted to say.
I think I said what I meant.
I don't think what I said or what you said would offend anybody. I support our right to protect ourselves from the government.
That's the thing. I'm not saying we should. Yeah, that's the thing of it. I'm not saying that we should get rid of guns in this country. I'm not saying we should get rid of the Second Amendment necessarily. I'm saying we need to just reevaluate how we think about it and accept the fact that part of it does say regulate. We need to we need to monitor who has these things in their hands and what their usage is.
I think the NRA headquarters just quotes the end of it in front of their building, shall not be infringed.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But they left out the first part.
Yeah, right.
Come on, guys. If you're going to be like the Constitution says, then know what it says.
Right.
A well-regulated militia. That's all I'm going to say about it. All right. Well, I think we said what we wanted to say. Anyway, so there's going to be a little break between season 2 and 3. I want to get all the other stuff uploaded from before so you guys can listen to that instead of watching us because
I don't want to watch me.
I know. Anyway,
I got a face for radio.
Yeah, me too, I guess. All right, anyway. Always a pleasure, Aaron. And
likewise, Joshua.
We'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah, maybe 3. It's going to take some time to upload the stuff. It takes forever. I was uploading some stuff the other day, and I'm like, plus I am using Wi-Fi. My computer's not connected to the wire. Anyway, all right, guys. See you later. Like the channel, subscribe it, share it around. Let other people know it. Leave comments. We can get fact-checked. I don't care. But take care, and good night, Canada.
Josh is wrong all the time.
Yep. Good night, Mom. Thanks for watching.
Good night, Mom.
I'll talk
Bye,
to you.
Mom.
See you later.